Hello, and welcome back to another great episode of hashtag Screw the W2. Today's guest was actually one of many that I was recommended by a previous guest, Christine Shu. So, Christine, if you're listening to this, thanks for recommending having Jason Bake on my show. Jason, welcome to the Screw the W2 YouTube show.
Thanks for having me, John. Love the name of the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, I got a friend that's in the legal area. I've been debating. It's like, can you patent a hashtag? I don't know if you can or not, but we'll cross that bridge later on. So, but anyways, Jason, maybe you can kind of take us back in time first. Whether that I don't know if that was a year ago or 5 years ago. What was your, previous W-2 job? What was it like, or what was like an average day for you?
Yeah, so I used to be a data scientist.
Okay.
I started off right out of college in management consulting, actually, but quickly pivoted to data and analytics.
Okay.
I mean, I spent most of my years climbing the corporate ranks, so my day when I first started was very different from the day when I ended my career.
Okay.
But like most corporate workers, it was mostly a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
I despite being someone in data, like I used to actually analyze data when I was younger and when I was more
Okay.
junior, but the higher up that I went, the less data analysis that I actually did. Most of it was filled with talking to clients, talking to my executives, talking to other stakeholders or people from other like the marketing team or the product
Yeah.
team or somewhere else, and just discussing operational problems with politics or team members specifically. So there's a lot of like people management
Yeah.
mostly and time management and expectation management, and not as much of the actual analysis portion, which is the
Right.
part that I
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, sometimes I swear some corporations just like to have meetings for the sake of having meetings. And I still remember years and years ago, my W-2 job, my boss literally asked the group, did we just set up a meeting so that we can set up a time to schedule another meeting? And that was how insane it got. So,
yeah, that sounds like pretty much my life. I feel like I never got any work done because I was talking
yeah.
about getting my work done, but I never had the time to.
Yeah, have an hour meeting for something that could be accomplished by a 5 minute email or Teams
Yeah,
meeting or
exactly.
something. So, but
Exactly.
with that, Jason, obviously, you kind of mentioned some of the shifts that occurred with your W-2 job, but was there a, specific moment you can think of, or maybe even a series of moments of, yep, this isn't for me. I got to get out of here, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I think I vaguely remember my inflection point being one of the times that I received a promotion, actually.
Okay.
So I became a vice president of a smallish company, and I remember being pretty happy for that day. I was told that I was going to get promoted by my CEO, and during a nice, like after like a happy hour, the entire company came and he announced all the promotions, and I was one of the people that was getting one. So I remember how exciting that felt. I was pretty young for the title, and I felt like I had worked hard to get there. I took risks. I spent a lot of time and effort making sure that my company was happy, my clients were happy. So I felt like I had accomplished a lot.
Okay.
But I remember very specifically the next morning how when I came back into my office and I had the same exact problems, I had the same exact meetings, same exact clients. I think it was that moment that I realized that nothing really changed. I think
Hmm.
before I got that position, I was always, for some reason, romanticizing in my head that as soon as I became, a vice president or a director or a senior vice president or whatever, that my magic, like that magically my life would change, that it'd be
Yeah.
easier, my work would be more fun, it'd be more fulfilling. But I think the reality set in very quickly afterwards, where literally the whatever goes after my name or before my name when I get announced to people, that changed, but functionally nothing else did. And I think as someone who's pretty technical,
Mhm.
I realized there's a marketing aspect to giving employees promotions and salary bumps, and I was much more focused on the functional side of how that actually impacted my life, and I realized that it didn't impact my life at all. So
Mm,
I think that was one of the first moments that I realized that this probably wasn't the path that I wanted to continue down,
gotcha.
because I kind of got jaded where if my next step was senior vice president and then executive vice president and then whatever C-suite, like would anything functionally change? Probably
Right.
not. So I realized that yeah, something had to give.
Sure. Yeah, I've always kind of amazed me how many different euphemisms and how many different levels of C-suites they can have in corporate America. Like I said, executive vice president, senior vice president, assistant to the vice president, associate vice president. Just
Yeah.
it gets kind of comical after a while. So, with that, Jason, once you had that inflection point, what were your next steps to leave your W-2, and how did you do it?
So it took me a long time. It wasn't
Okay.
anything that happened overnight. I'm sure many people listening will be aware of the golden handcuffs phenomenon,
Yep.
where it's really hard to give up a job where I mean it's respected well enough. I have teams that I manage. I get paid a nice six-figure salary.
Hmm.
So despite wanting to do something else, it's really tough to give up a guaranteed paycheck, quote
Yep.
unquote guaranteed, I guess, because
Right.
obviously you can still get let go. But so what I started to do was actually spend all of my free time educating myself
Mhm.
and learning how to invest in first stocks, because that was the easiest thing for me to do. I knew that stocks you don't really need to spend a lot of time and effort. Like buying and selling stocks, you can do in a matter of
Sure.
seconds right throughout all these platforms. So I focused on that. I used that to build my net worth a little bit while I was working, and then I eventually pivot to real estate because I knew that there was a higher multiple on the amount of time and money that I can invest into there.
Hmm.
So I did for specifically real estate. I looked at a lot of books, listened to Bigger Pockets, did the classic thing, went to meetups and started meeting people one on one over Zoom.
Hmm.
So it was maybe 2 years of educating myself on real estate specifically.
Okay.
And unlike other people who will start to dabble in real estate and start buying properties while they do the full time day job,
Hmm.
I decided to just focus on my career until I decided to quit cold turkey before I had any properties.
Wow.
So I took a bit of a different approach, just knowing myself better.
Sure.
And I decided to, I started consulting on the side. I was data consulting for other people and, getting
Hmm.
paid hourly by them to save up enough money to make the transition full time and have a little bit of a runway.
Gotcha. No, it makes sense. Yeah, I think I don't think for very many people it's just like day one, or day 357, you're an employee, and then day 358, you're a real estate investor with 8
Yeah,
properties. And
exactly.
there's nothing in between. It just doesn't quite happen like that. So,
Yeah, so that's a bit unique of my story, but I'm glad I did it. It was rough year one,
yeah.
but I just know myself best.
Yeah, no, makes sense. So, with that, Jason, I would, once you had this plan and, like you said, you educated yourself for about 2 years in your free time, focused on your career. But when you did make that shift, jumped into real estate, left the W-2 world behind you, remember specifically like when your exact last day was, or was it, you remember it in vague terms, or how much of an
Oh
impact was
yeah,
that
no,
for you?
I remember my last day very, very clearly because
Okay.
it was a big transition, obviously. So on the last day itself, when I was still in the office, I remember an interesting conversation that I had with my managing partner at the time, and she was she's very nice. She was very supportive. But I remember the conversation because during the conversation, she was having a typical exit interview, like, "Do you have any, you know, things that you would improve about the company, like anything that you would change, anything that you want to call out, very boilerplate." But
Sure.
we started having a friendly conversation afterwards, and she actually asked me, "Oh, I know you're going to real estate. How many properties do you have?" And I remember that conversation because I was so embarrassed in the moment to admit that I had zero, because no one leaves a six-figure corporate job with zero units. So I deflected a bit and told her a white lie. I was like, yeah, I have a few units, but I'm trying to get more.
Sure.
When in reality I had zero. I hadn't even bought my own house yet, so I barely
Oh,
understood how, yeah, how houses kept themselves together. So that was an interesting start to my real estate journey. And the day after, I also remember how stark the contrast was. Where when I'm in corporate America, I've got teams that I manage, I've got bosses, I've got clients, I've got other, people that are from other departments, and everyone is giving me stuff to do. They are putting calendar invites on, they're giving me deadlines, they're giving me, people to or problems to solve. But the day after, when I had no network in real estate, when I had no units on my own, remember looking at my calendar that was completely free and thinking, okay, like what do I do? And I mean, fully admit that those first few weeks after quitting were probably one of the toughest times of my entire career, just because I had to shift my mentality from being a W-2 worker to being an
Right.
entrepreneur. And
Hmm.
because I went the cold turkey route, I didn't leave myself a lot of cushion or a lot of transition buffer. But I eventually learned. Today I've got a pretty packed schedule of just stuff that I decided to pick up myself. But yeah, it was a tough transition.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Do you remember specifically what calendar? What was your Freedom Day per se?
When you mean Freedom Day, you mean like
Yeah,
the
yeah. Like your last day of W-2 was January 3rd, 2020. I don't know. I'm just throwing out a
oh
date.
yes, it was November 15th, 20. I'm trying to see. I remember the day. I don't know the year. 2020, I believe.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, because I've
Interesting.
been
My
doing this for
previous
about
guest
7 years.
remembered it was November, remembered exactly the year, but didn't remember the date. So it was interesting that I know there seems to be something about November because November of 2014 was kind of when I had my epiphany or inflection
Oh
point of
wow.
do I want to work 40, 50 hours a week for the next 20, 30, 40 years of my life? So I don't maybe it's son of a Thanksgiving, who knows?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe because you expect that it's going to be quiet anyway because of Christmas, and you figure that's enough time to get things going. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe I don't know. So, with that, Jason, looking back, obviously, remember, so November a few years ago, but looking back, is there anything you do miss or you do regret from leaving the W-2, or maybe in your case, leaving the W-2 cold turkey?
I missed the paycheck.
I think
It's
everyone says that.
it's a weird flip where back when I was in corporate America, I didn't really think about my pay stub. Like I got it every 2 weeks. It was deposited into my account. I had plenty of cash at all times, and I didn't have to think about pinching pennies because I just had enough at all times. I hated the life of a W-2 worker, but I didn't have to worry about finances. Today,
Sure.
as an entrepreneur, it's flipped where I love what I do. I wake up every single day looking forward to all the stuff that I have to do. But now I'm hyper focused on finances
Right.
because I'm a full-time multifamily operator. So I don't have steady income. I've got little drips of cash flow, but most of my income comes from like capital events or,
Sure.
large changes that we make to properties, and that doesn't happen every single week.
Hmm.
It's a different level of anxiety now, but one that I enjoy.
Sure.
I wish I had the financial stability that I used to have, but I'm still in growth phase. So I'm hoping in another 5 years that I will both have the love of my work life and also comfort of financial stability. But I'm working towards it.
Sure.
Um, I will say I also miss the people I used to work with.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had coworkers that I disliked. It was more so just the lifestyle of working for a big company that I didn't necessarily have equity in.
Yeah.
So I love the teams that I manage. I love the teams that I work with. Today, fortunately, I have teams. I've got a business partner. I've got a virtual assistant. I have masterminds that I'm part of. So I have a network again. But when I first started that was actually the aspect that no one really prepared me for and how lonely it is being an entrepreneur, especially when you're
Yeah.
starting out and you don't have any peers or colleagues.
Exactly. So, on the flip side, Jason, you kind of, alluded to some of the changes as well. Obviously, you missed the paycheck, missed some of the people from the W-2 lifestyle, but flipping that around, what's been the best part of your journey since you left the W-2 and become an entrepreneur?
Oh, that's a great question. I didn't think it was possible to actually enjoy what I did
Okay.
And that's weird because it's weird for me to even say out loud because I love data. I love the role of data analysis, but I think when I was in corporate America, I still yearned for every Friday, right?
Hmm.
Every single week started on a crappy Monday. I
Yep.
I was, I had trouble sleeping Sunday night because I knew Monday morning was around the corner, and I always counted down the days until the next weekend or the next holiday or the next long
Hmm.
weekend or the next vacation.
Yep.
Uh, so I just I did that for 8, 9, 10 years. I forget how long I was in corporate America for, but I did that for a while, and I thought that's what life was. I talk to my friends, I talk to my colleagues. They say the same thing. Oh, looking forward to the weekend. Oh, I'm gonna go on vacation to Italy. I'm gonna, St. Patrick's Day is gonna be nice, right? They always look forward towards the next non-working day.
Right.
But now that I'm an entrepreneur, I actually it's almost weird to me to wake up and look forward to all the stuff that I got to do because I know that every single ounce of work that I put into my business is directly proportional to the amount of returns or enjoyment that I will get. So
Hmm.
uh, that's been a pleasant surprise, and it's the first time in my life that I truly enjoy what I do. I know there's nothing super glamorous about being a multifamily investor. I still have to do a
Right.
bunch of admin BS. I still have to deal
Hmm.
with politics and you know personalities,
Yep.
but it's far more enjoyable just because I do it for myself.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, with that being said, Jason, I think everyone can probably uh relate to your story, my story. They're at a certain point. It's the golden handcuffs that keeps them from taking the leap. Or I got a family, I can't give up the paycheck. I have no savings. I don't want to call them excuses, but they are real life reasons for I am here stuck in my job and I'm unable, unwilling, fearful of making that leap to an entrepreneur, investor, whatever. For any of my listeners out there that maybe find themselves in that place, what words of advice or encouragement would you give them?
That's interesting. I don't know if I am not the type of person who is like a motivational guy. I'm an analyst by trade, so I'm pessimistic. That's my default. Honestly, like again, this is just coming from one person's perspective. I don't demonize the W-2.
Hmm.
I think it serves a very specific role for specific types of people. I've heard from a lot of people too that if you are someone that has like high anxiety, being an entrepreneur is going to be
Yeah.
terrible, right? There's a type of person that thrives in a work environment. So if you love what you do, there's no reason to try and try to branch out. Or if you have mouths to feed, I think that's just something that you have to make peace with. The
Hmm.
only person that I would suggest you really think through whether or not you make the shift to being an entrepreneur is if you think you will regret it in
Hmm.
5, 10, 20 years, because that's what made the deciding factor for me.
Sure.
I understand how hard it is to give up a six-figure job. I
Mhm.
understand, how hard it is. Well, I don't have kids, but I'm married, so I know if you have people that rely on you, it's hard to give that
Mhm.
up. But what I thought about was if I looked back at past Jason and I regretted anything that he did, I think that was the inflection point that allowed me to make the decision to go into entrepreneurship. And if you
Gotcha.
think that regardless of all the risks that may exist today, if you think in 20 years you could potentially regret it, I think you'll always be asking that question to yourself. And I think you have to at least give it a shot. As long as you mitigate your risk, as long as you save up some money, as long as you reduce your expenses, maybe move to a smaller home or a cheaper town or
Hmm.
something, so that you give yourself a little bit of a buffer. I think you have to take that opportunity so you don't regret your life decisions. I mean, I know a lot of people who are older that are part of my family that are they always blame other people, right? It's
Yep.
uh, I couldn't pursue my dream because of my spouse or because of my kids or because of whatever, and you don't want that to happen. So you want to make
Exactly.
sure that you're living a life that you won't regret. If you have no desire to go through the hardships of being an entrepreneur, nothing wrong with the W-2, but if you think you'll regret it, I think you have to give it a shot.
Yeah, no, definitely makes sense. And yeah, I think a lot of people can, definitely see themselves. And, it's never easy to take that leap of faith, but at the same token, and this is why I bring you and other entrepreneurs on, I think when other people hear of, well, Jason did it, John did it, Courtney did it, Christine did it, Jason did, etc. Okay, I'm starting to feel maybe a little more confident that maybe I can do this. So as we wrap this up, Jason, I do want to thank you again for taking the time to share your story with my listeners. For lack of a better marketing title, I have dubbed this as the unscrewed moment. But as we are, about a quarter of the way through 2023, are there any new projects you're working on? Anything you want to share with my listeners, or maybe your website contact information if people want to reach out and see what you're up to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm under contract for 27 units today.
Wow.
So I'm
Okay.
still an
Congrats.
active operator. Oh yeah, thanks. Still making active offers and trying to take down more apartment units. I'm trying to create more content. So I have an education arm of our business that I started where I teach people how to analyze apartments.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, you can visit the underwritinglab.com if you're looking to just understand a little bit more about the business of multifamily.
Okay.
Looking to start a YouTube channel this year, within the next month or so, because I want to again just get into that content space, grow a brand. So a lot of stuff in the pipeline.
All right. Sounds good. Well, depending on when this gets published, we'll reach out. Maybe your YouTube channel will be live and I can tag that in the video so people can see what you're up to then. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It'll 99.9% just be my name, Jason Bake, Baik. So I think you can find me.
all right, sounds good. All right. Well, I appreciate you sharing your story, Jason. For those listening, again, that's the underwritinglab.com, the education website. I'll have that in the show notes. Jason, thanks again for coming on and hope you have a great rest of the week.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, John.